Hi, I'm George Pearson, and in this Photoshop Elements video, we'll be making this Santa Claus picture frame. Now if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, and of course also click on share and share with your friends through social media. If you haven't already subscribed, click on that subscribe button as well. And to learn a lot more about how to use Photoshop Elements, take a look at my complete training courses, and you'll find a link right down there below in the description. Okay, let's get to it. We'll start off this project with a new file. I'll just get this out of the way. There we go. File, new, blank file. And I have this set at the default Photoshop Elements size. I'll go ahead and click on it right there, default size. And that's 6 inches wide by 4 inches tall at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. And choose OK. There we go. There's our blank file. Now the first thing we need is to bring in our Santa Claus, but I want to be able to resize that properly. So to do that, we'll just pull a guideline down from the rulers right down to the middle point. It should automatically snap to that middle point. Now if you're not seeing rulers or it's not snapping, take a look at View and make sure you have rulers checked. That will give you those rulers. And make sure that guides are shown and snap to the guides is checked. With all that in there, you can then pull that down. It'll just kind of pop right to that middle point. Okay, let's go ahead now, File, and we're going to be placing this file in here. And I have mine right there. There we go. Now in here, there is the image. Now you can download these two images if you want to. They're on the download page, and you'll find a link for that in the description. Click on that, click on Place. That then places it into the middle of the page just like that. Hit that green check mark to set that in place. You can now grab any of the corners. I'll just grab this upper right-hand corner, pull that down until Santa is right down to that middle point. And then grab the bottom corner here and pull it up so he's a little ways away from the bottom, right down there, and choose OK. Now just pull him over, just about over to here somewhere. We may adjust this a little bit after we get things kind of set in place. But that's basically where Santa Claus is going to go. Now at this point, he's a smart object. Let's just convert him to a regular object. And you do that by just right-clicking on the name up here and choose Simplify Layer. It's a little icon right there. That shows that this is a smart object, and we don't actually need that. So I'll just do Simplify Layer, and there we go. Whenever you place an object in here, it will be coming in as a smart object. Okay, now we need the frame in behind here, and for that, we need to do a couple of things. First off, let's make a new layer here above the background layers. Click on Background, click on New Layer. Here's our new layer. We also now need to have a couple of colors in here. I'm going to reset my colors to their defaults just like that so you can see what I'm doing. And let's zoom in on the Santa texture in here, kind of the paper in behind. We're not using this paper, but I want to have something that's relatively close to this. It looks like Santa's actually on the right kind of surface. So go to your foreground color, and then using the eyedropper tool, just click in one of these light areas. Like right there is pretty good. Choose OK. That's our foreground. Click on the background color. That's right in here where the white is. Click on that, and then choose one of these dark spots. There's a lot of them to choose from. Anything in the basic dark area will be just fine. And choose OK. It gives you just a little bit of a darker color in there. So our foreground, light and dark. Now you can change this if you're not happy. Just click on your foreground. You can re-choose a foreground again. There you go. You know, like right in there is pretty nice. And same thing for the background. So you can easily come in, as you can see here, and just adjust or modify your colors. That's a bit better, I think, on my dark. I'm just looking at the differences here. The current, that's your foreground color, and this is your background color. You want to have enough separation in there so you can really see the difference. A little bit darker. That looks nice. You want to have your foreground and your background showing in here to be about the same difference as your colors over there. It's not real critical, but it's just kind of nice. Choose OK. All right, now we can set up our background texture. Let's just set this back to fit on screen, which is right there. And we're still on this background layer. Go over to the paint bucket, and then just click inside here. And that just fills that with the foreground color. Okay, now go up to Filter, come down to Filter Gallery right there. And in the Filter Gallery, I'm just going to Close that. We want to come down to the texture section and the texturizer, which is right here. Choose the sandstone texture, and then on the scaling, set the scaling at 90% and the relief at 4, and have my lighting angle at left. I'll show you why on that in just a second. So 90%, 4, and left on the lighting with a sandstone texture. Choose OK. That gives you just kind of a nice texture in there. It's very similar to the texture we had in here. It's not quite exact, but it's pretty close. Let me first show you the reason for that left lighting angle on this. And that's if you look in here carefully at the texture, it looks like there's a light spot and there's a shadow just to the right of it. There's a light spot and a shadow just to the right of it. Here's a light bit and here's a shadow just to the right. It looks like on the texture that the lighting is from the left-hand side. So this kind of helps to match that look. Again, not critical. Once we're back out, we can see we're maybe just a little bit lighter than it is in here. Just kind of the overall feel. It's a little bit darker than this is. We can adjust that with an adjustment layer. So go up here to Layer, come down to New Adjustment Layer, and Levels. And here where it says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, make sure that's selected. This just links the adjustment to that one layer. And choose OK. And in here, I just want to bring the darkness down a little bit here. See how if I slide the middle one here, the middle control to the left, it gets brighter, or to the right, it gets darker. We'll just bring it down just a little bit until it's a closer match. That looks pretty good to me. So I think there's a good setting. So I left the black point alone, I left the white point alone. I just moved the middle to the right a little bit until the values are pretty close to what we have there in that Santa picture. And then close that down. Now it's still too rough. Santa's a bit softer, so you need to soften this down just a touch. Come down to Layer 1. This is our background layer. I'm going to just double click on this one and call this one Frame. So that's our frame layer right there. And let's go back up here to Filter. Come down to Blur and the Gaussian blur right there. And in here, set this at 0.5. That just softens it up just a little bit. Again, it's not an exact match, but that doesn't matter. As long as it's real close, we're fine. And that just helps it look like this is actually on the surface that is making up our frame. Okay, so there's our Santa in place. There's our background. The next thing we need to do is to make our opening in here for our frame. Once the opening is done, we can then come back in and clean the Santa up. Now for the opening, go over here to the Shape tool, Rounded Rectangle tool. I'm going to change my color here. This is the foreground color, as you can see there. I'm just going to change this to black so it's real easy to see this. Rounded Rectangle, and I have the corner set at 70 pixels. Now we need to draw this so it's correctly positioned, so for that I need to have some guidelines. So let's grab my guideline up here and I'll pull it down. If you look on the left hand side there on the ruler, I'm putting it right down about 1/2 inch. There we go. Put from the left hand side about 1/2 inch at the top ruler, you can see that. And same thing for the bottom, come down about 1/2 inch off of the bottom, which is right about there. And then right hand side, 1/2 inch off of the right hand side, again right about there. So there's our 1/2 inch border. We now can take this Shape tool, come right over here, come right over this cross right there where the two lines cross, click and drag from there down to the bottom right hand corner where they cross, and that shape should just snap into that position. Okay, there we go. There is our shape for our window. Now to do the window in here, we just need to use this as a selection. So hold the Control key down and click on the icon here. That selects that. You can actually hide that. You can even delete that layer if you want to. We no longer need that layer in there. And come down to the frame layer here and use that selection to make a layer mask. But to make a layer mask right now, we'll be getting the inside and the outside will be clear. I don't want to have that. I want to have the outside, so I need to invert this selection. So select inverse. So now the outside part is selected. And when you click on Layer Mask, it's going to show whatever is selected. So let's take a look at that. There we go. And there's that picture frame. We can now hide those guides. They're no longer needed. I'll go up to View and uncheck Guides. Okay, so far so good. Now we can work on Santa. We want to take out the background around Santa and leave just the Santa image in here now that he has a nice matching background clear around the outside. So go up to the Santa layer and let's zoom in on Santa. There we go. All has been pretty tight in here. See, we're pretty close on that's a good match on that background. I could have possibly softened it up just a little bit, but I think we're just fine. A little more texture out here is actually a bit better when you print this out so you can actually see the texture on the print. Now to make our selection, I'm just going to be using the polygonal lasso tool, and I'll go around the whole shape. You don't need to be real super careful on this one because the background does match that background out there, so we're okay on that. I'll also go clear around the shape, and then down here a couple of spots you need to watch out for. On the right hand side here, his little cuff is cut off, so I'm going to come in and just kind of fake a curve in here like that. And then at the very bottom down here we have the bottom of the scroll. It kind of fades into the background, so I'm just going to fake in a line right here for the bottom of the scroll. So from that, it's pretty straightforward. I'll start this off up here, and then I'll pause the video while I finish making that selection, and then I'll bring it back up again once the selection is made. I normally like starting at a spot I can easily come back to, like the intersection right here of the hat and that puff right there, and then just come in and make your selection. Again, not critical on this one, but take your time between your clicks. If you click too fast, the selection is going to collapse on itself and you'll have to start over again. So just kind of take your time, be slow and easy about it, and work around. Now, the reason why I like this particular tool is I can come in, I can find the spot I want and click, and it then locks in that spot. I can then find my next spot and click. So it's a very controllable tool to do this. It's also real nice on these kind of real rough shapes, and it's really good on straight shapes as well, obviously. But it's a pretty easy tool to use once you get the hang of it. So it's just a matter of going around and making this selection. Okay, at this point I'm just going to pause the video, and I'll finish making this selection around Santa. As soon as that's done, I'll bring the video back up again. And there's my selection. Take a clear around and then right back to my starting point, and that gives you a full round selection. Now you can move the image around. Just hold the space bar down. You can then pull the image around as you're making your selection, just like that. Space bar, move it around, space bar, and move around. See here, I came in, just kind of faked the curve on that side, so I didn't have a big flat thing over here. And I also came in and put in a bottom section. I had to give it just a little bit of a curve right down there. Just a few clicks in there for a curve, and then around there as well. So just come clear around and bring it right around back to your starting point, and that gives you your nice selection. Once your selection is made, you can then convert that into a layer mask. I'm just going to zoom out here for a second. There we are. There's our selection, and then we're on that Santa layer right here. Click on the layer mask button. That makes a layer mask around Santa. Okay, now that we have Santa in our layer mask, we can zoom in a little bit and adjust his position left and right. I don't want to have this much picture showing in behind there, so I'm just going to move Santa over to the left a bit so that we're not really seeing that bit of picture. Maybe in just a touch, so I got a little bit of the round part of the top of his hat here. Kind of going over that edge. That's fine. A little bit of picture in behind there is okay. A little bit showing down there is fine. And that looks like a pretty good position. Okay, it's back out to fit on screen again. So there is the Santa part of the project. Now, we did a lot of work on this Santa, and we're going to be merging this down with our background layers. So to make that safe, I'm going to duplicate the Santa layer. Just drag it up here to the new layer button like that, and there's our duplicate. You can then just hide either one of those. So I'll be working with this one. At this point, I'll take my shape layer. I'm just going to move it down here underneath our frame layer. So it's just hidden down there by the background. That's fine. And everything is looking good. Let's make a backup safety layer of our frame layer as well at this point. So let's take your frame layer, drag it up to your new layer button like that. So now I have two copies of that. I'll hide the bottom one. Notice that we lost the clipping mask here on the levels. That's easy to fix. Just click up here on those levels, right click, and then choose Create Clipping Mask. That just makes sure that this levels control is only being applied to that frame layer. Now click on the Santa layer right there. Hold the Shift key down and click on the frame layer. In this case it says frame copy. So those three layers are now selected. Right click on the name of one of the layers, doesn't matter which one, I'll click on levels here. Right click on the name and come down to merge layers. What that does is it merges them together. It also flattens them out and kind of combines everything into one layer. That's why I made a copy of the Santa and a copy of the background, just in case you want to go back and make adjustments on those so you have them as separate pieces. Now it's all one layer in here. If I hide the background, see how we have that transparency now in that window? There we go. Okay, now that we have this, I'm just going to rename this one Santa frame. That's our merged layer. Let's put a layer style in this little drop shadow in here. So go up to the layer menu, come down to layer style, style settings, and drop shadow right there. Now the settings in here on the drop shadow, I have my lighting set at 90 degrees, just straight up and down. You can see a little drop shadow up in there. Change the size here to 2. This is just the softness of the edge of that shadow, just a real small amount of softness on the edge. We want it down a bit more, so change the distance here to 17. Brings it down a little bit, and it's too dark, so let's change the opacity here down to about 14. It's kind of a nice little soft drop shadow in there. If you want a little bit of it showing over here on the left hand side, just move your light angle over just a little bit like that, and you can get just a touch of a shadow in there. Maybe 119 degrees, just a little thin edge right there. So there's our drop shadow for that frame, and choose OK. Let's now bring in our garland at the top up here. File, come down to Place, and there's the garland right there. Choose Place, and again this is downloaded from online. You get the download link in the description. And take this, grab the bottom corner here, and just pull it up and get it so it's just about from the 1 inch to the 5 inch in there. About that size, maybe a little bit smaller than that. You're right about in there, just a little smaller than the 1, a little smaller than the 5. And pull that up so it kind of goes off the frame at the top and then comes in just a little bit in here across the top, just like that, and choose OK. Now it's not a real good match with Santa, so you need to distort this just a bit, just to kind of soften that layer up. So on this layer, again, it comes in as a smart object, so right click and choose Simplify Layer. That converts it into just a basic graphic. Let's now apply a filter onto this. Go up to Filter, come down to Filter Gallery. Here's our filter gallery. I'll close that texture down. Go up to the Artistic section up here, and we'll be using the Sponge tool right there. And on the sponge, brush size is set at 0. I have the definition set at 10 and smoothness set at 3. And choose OK. It just adds a little bit of a roughening up in there, which brings it closer to the look of those little leaves right down on his hat in here. Last thing, I need just a real small blur on this. So that's Filter and Blur, Gaussian blur right there. And I'll set this at 0.3, just a real small amount of blurring on that, and choose OK. And now it's a pretty close match to those little leaves right there on his hat. So there is the basic frame all taken care of. Now if you want to, you can merge this into the Santa frame right down below there. I'm going to leave them as separate layers. That's just fine. Okay, now for our picture in behind, just come down to your background layer right here and then place your picture using the Place command. It will come in above that background. It will then be inside of this frame. Let's see how that works. File, Place. I have my sample picture right there. Just choose any picture you want. Choose Place. And that comes in right there underneath all those layers, and it's inside of that frame. You can then, if you want to, just grab a corner and you can resize that a little bit to get the size you want to fit in your frame. You can reposition a bit, and that looks pretty good. There we go. There's our Santa frame. Okay, let's just zoom in on this a little bit, make it just a bit easier to see here. And there we go. So there's our nice little Santa Claus picture frame. Don't forget to hit that like button for this video, and also click on share and share this video with your friends there through social media. If you haven't subscribed, click on that subscribe button as well. And of course, to really learn how to use Photoshop Elements, the best way to do that is to get my complete training course, and you'll find a link for that right down there in the description. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.